Hello, my friends. Everybody loves a good video, but how on earth do you craft one that can, in as little as 10 seconds, make somebody cry? Today on the Possibility Mom Live, I'm going to be bringing on my new friend, Nick Balls, who's going to share with us some principles behind great brand storytelling and how it can transform your business. That's what's coming up today on the Possibility Mom Live. Before we get into today's content, I want to share with all of you just what a fun and exciting whirlwind of last couple weeks has been. I was in Ave Maria, Florida, where I hosted 6 incredible women from all across the United States and Canada for my Wealth Without Guilt retreat with Stephanie Donahue. And it was just a beautiful experience. I would say the drumbeat of that experience was connection with each other, connection with God, and connection with ourselves. There were some beautiful things that I got to witness in terms of personal breakthroughs and just time in sisterhood and solidarity. I am recommitted, so to speak, or it's been very much impressed on me from that experience how important it is to sometimes pause and to just invest in each other. It was interesting. We did some fun excursions. Like we did a boat ride. We saw a dolphin, we spent time on the beach because, of course, Florida, right? But some of the feedback was simply that the most valuable thing was time with people. We also had some time of prayer and time of worship and time with friends like Matt and Erin Ingold, who live in Ave Maria, Florida, from Metanoia Catholic, January Donovan, very unexpectedly, like surprise stop by from the Wholeness School. And so it was just a lovely time of connection. Right on the tail of that, I came back to Canada, sent my kids for their first day of school, and then flew out to Dallas, Texas for the Scent Ventures Summit. And I shared recently on my Instagram what I spent time with multimillionaires. Like Tom Monahan was there, who founded Ave Maria. Several venture capitalists were in the room. We're talking teams of 500 plus. And the fascinating drumbeat, it's as if they all got together and said, this is what we're going to talk about. I don't think they did this, but it was as if all of them got together and said, we're all going to talk about this exact same thing. And it was this notion that you can strategize and you can have a plan, and you need it. You need a plan. But at the end of the day, you have got to take that plan, surrender it to the Lord, and spend time with Him. This message of spending time with the Lord and listening for His voice was repeated again and again. It was repeated in intimate dinner conversations I had. It was repeated from the pulpit, from homilies out of priests' mouths, several. Like, I'm not talking just like the one priest, like several. And then it was repeated from the main stage, from these multimillionaires who manage teams of 500, that you need to take that plan and then surrender it all and spend time with the Lord. So we were encouraged at the summit in various different ways to commit to a prayer minimum. Like, what is that prayer minimum, that daily minimum you're going to commit to? And then what is the ideal? So the Lord gave me some things I'm feeling very challenged by. I'm going to keep them private for now. Maybe one day I'll share, the result of my experiment or what have you, like what the Lord has really, like, it's a bit of a challenge. And so I'm going to keep it private for now, but I'm feeling quite committed to and convicted to spend more time with Him and just being quiet and listening. Like, that's just the key message, like being quiet and listening. So I'm curious if that is convicting for you as well, and if that is something that you want to commit to. What is that prayer, that daily prayer commitment? If you are watching this live, please feel free to comment in the comments. What's that daily prayer commitment you would like to commit to? Now, I was talking about plans, okay? We still need the plan. And so if you are looking to build a plan and particularly a blueprint to build a six-figure business, Stephanie Donahue and I are back. We are back yet again with our signature 5-day event, if you will. We have done this event, six figures, your six-figure blueprint. We're going to help you build a six-figure blueprint. What do I mean by that? There are so many ways that one can build a business. You can build it online. You can build it in person. You can build it, going door to door. Literally, there's so many different ways you can build a business. We want to help you build an online business because I love the concept of keeping a mom at home. I've got 10 kids on earth. I love that I can do all of my business activity either from my phone or sitting right here. And when they roll in the door, after school, I can drop what I'm doing. I can pause what I'm doing and I can spend time with them. And they're just, the internet has made, and the topic we're going to get into today, like video marketing, video storytelling, the ability to build a business from your phone is one of the greatest gifts, I think, of the internet. Are there a lot of challenges with the internet? Absolutely. But the ability for a mom, particularly, to build a business from home, to support her husband, to be able to lessen the financial stress or the financial burden on her husband, to pay for Catholic school tuition, to be able to give generously to causes, I believe is completely possible today, thanks to the ability to build a business from your phone. So we are hosting our live 5-day coaching event. You are going to get both of us, not one coach, but two, available to you for 5 days. We're going to go through our methodology of how we coach our people inside of the Wealth Without Guilt Mastermind and how we coach women in this exact experience. Like, you could do this experience, this 5-day experience, and make money from this. I really just want you to hear me say that. You can invest $29 in this week-long coaching event and get an immediate return by implementing some of the strategies. These are not just what's the word I'm looking for? We're not just teaching you mindset strategies. We're going to teach you, here's how you launch a small product from your expertise, from your book, from your what have you, whatever it is, and build the basics for a six-figure business. So to join me and Stephanie on this 5-day experience, we're going to spend 1 hour a day over the course of 5 days, September 23rd through 27th. Lots of live coaching, lots of tactics, lots of meaty content. If you can't join live, that's okay. The replays will be posted immediately after. You can come and grab your spot at learn.thepossibilitymom.com/six-figure blueprint. That's learn.thepossibilitymom.com/six-figure blueprint. Alrighty. Today's topic came up from some tears. I want you to meet the man behind the tears. And I don't know if you were like me, but I could not make it to the National Eucharistic Congress that was just hosted this summer in Indianapolis, in Indy. And so of course I couldn't be there in person. So I watched it like a hawk. They had live streaming, but of course I was really interested. I love watching people's reactions authentically at events. I love watching people sharing their stories, the vendor shops. I get very, because you get a nice little behind the scenes kind of, you get a look that is just fun and personal when you're following people on social media. And so I started noticing some of the same videos kept coming up again and again and again. And I was like, who is making these videos for the National Eucharistic Congress? Now, listen, everybody, I'm a little bit of an online stalker. Okay, that's a little extreme, but a little bit. I really liked it. I can click around and click around and click around, and I will find the most obscure random, comment that leads me to a random article that leads me to some random, friend of a friend, and I will find the information I need. Now, it wasn't that difficult, but I was able to then, of course, track down who created these incredible videos, and I was introduced to Lux Labs. It is so fun having been in media for most of my career, okay, in case we're new to each other, I got my start on HGTV. I had a 10-year plus career in front of the camera and behind it. I still do live TV. I was just on Fox and Friends. Like live TV is so much fun to me. It is so satisfying when I watch particularly Catholic media done so well. And so I'm so excited to bring to the podcast the founder of Lux Lab. But before we do, I'm actually going to play just one of the videos that brought me to tears. And so if you are listening to this in podcast form, I want to encourage you to go to their website or go to their Instagram, which is what I'm pulling up right now, Catholic Video Marketing. Let's take a listen and a look at this. Oh my gosh, Nick Falls, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right? The man behind tears is crying.
Well, it's not just my work, and so to see it again, it's emotional.
Of course it is. I mean, and there's so many things we can talk about. It's obviously the content, it's Jesus Christ on full display. It's watching people's reactions to the truth-feeding goodness that is Jesus Christ. Like there's so many things. But then from a stylistic point of view, we've got some really great editing. We've got some really great, cuts to music. So there's so many things. But Nick,
yeah,
anyone who might not know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think hearing what you're doing in this space is really fun, and getting to know you. I think I might sign up for that course. Can I? I'm a dad, so not sure if we can cross paths there. Six figures sounds nice though. I don't know if I'm in it for that. A lot of times this feels like a ministry, especially in the past 8 months. We've kind of doubled down on our Catholic identity. When I first founded the company back in 2016, I wanted to make a point that I don't want it to be Catholic. I don't want to just speak to the choir. I want to still work behind enemy lines in the secular world. And that was born from working in media, in commercials, feature films, short films, ever since film school, working in news right away in college, and getting fired because what my frontal lobe wasn't all the way there. Still maybe is questionable, but like making a lot of mistakes through filmmaking, and then a lot of wounds of starting businesses and them failing, starting freelancing contract work and moving to California for a month and failing. And so a lot of wounds there. So for me to start a company, I think there was some, anxiety about calling it just Catholic. Cause I think there were two things: opportunities to work in the secular world and probably get paid more. And because, I was starting a family in 2016, one son at that time, and wanting to build a foundation for our family. And at the second time, I felt a call to tell stories like Jesus, parables, where it was kind of a Trojan horse mentality of not looking Catholic, right? But deep down is Catholic. So I think of movies like The Matrix or The Truman Show, like this Plato's Cave of coming out and realize kind of how it reflects my story of how, I thought being on this world was just getting by and starting a family, having kids, but recognizing it's deeper than that. So I've gone off a lot of tangents. I think the second reason, for starting the company was I don't want to just speak to the choir. I think that's my main point, is like that's what I was nervous about. But over the past 8 months, we changed our Instagram handle to Catholic Video Marketing, and from there, recognized that this actually is more evangelistic than I thought it would be. And I've learned from others who are in the Catholic space who are creating that, it can actually, especially with the world we're in now, everyone's on, their Black Mirror. Mine's broken. Yeah, I need to fix that. But like, we're sucked into the space where if we see something that's powerful enough, we're going to share it with our friends and followers and family. Maybe that family isn't, practicing their faith, but when they see something like this video or, a lot of work that's out there, a lot of Catholic work, I think that's the dream, is to allow them to start asking questions. Like, what is this? And, I'm sure you've seen all the comments like, this is a cult. Maybe that's a seed planted, but maybe not. But also just sharing with your friends and family, wondering, okay, what is this? And what is the passion behind this? We call that pre-evangelization. So I think you asked me, what do I think you asked me, what do we do? And so I think of the foundation of Lux Lab. We were meant to, just kind of pay the bills, raise a family, but it over time became, I think it's becoming more what feels like a ministry. But that's really hard on a family.
People need to get 100%. So there's so many things I want to pause. Like, there's many different things I could
Sorry, I kept on going. I should go get some coffee while you talk.
Completely fine. So I want to ask, many of my clients have had that struggle around, okay, I'm going to come out as Catholic, so to speak. I absolutely had that struggle my very first 2 years of coaching. So I had a very secular based business of interior design. I never hid my face, so to speak, but kind of. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I felt like I had to. And then I started coaching, and it was very much in an accessible way, open to all. Didn't really hide my faith, but wasn't exactly leading with it in my marketing. And it took 2 years of experience and understanding that, like, almost 100% of my audience and almost 100% of people paying me large sums of money were actually, it was my Catholicity that was part of the attraction. And so it sounds like you went through something similar. What finally made you feel like, okay, I am all in, it's Catholic video marketing? Like, what was the impetus behind that?
Oh man, you ask a good question, because I feel like that maybe if a business, I mean, the thing is if a business did come to me wanting, I currently work with a home remodeling company, Catholic owned, but we enjoy working. We like that partnership. We enjoy working with them. And so I don't want to say no to that, right? And also I work with a financial company, not Catholic, but in a way, I mean, that's the beauty of the job too, is that working with them, and they see my email signature, Fiat Lux, or praying for you, these moments that I'm not gonna say no to those clients. But I think there's a freedom in when you double down on any niche, that you actually the Lord blesses that. uh, or maybe just the algorithm blesses it as well, because when we double down on our on our you know doing videos for Catholic brands, um, people came from everywhere. Um, so I think there's something to be said about making sure, at first when we had our niche, it was anyone who wants a 3-minute short film for their brand. And then over time, we've been doing this for 8 years now. You just kind of narrow in on what it is. And sometimes, so I think I feel bad because maybe there's a lack of commitment there on my end. Maybe the Lord does want me to keep narrowing it down, but I haven't necessarily recognized where that is.
I mean, I think it doesn't, and this is what I tell my clients all the time. It's not that you'll never work with someone who isn't Catholic. I have a few clients who coach with me who are not Catholic, and I have no problem with coaching them. They have no problem with working with me. It's not that you never work with other people, but it's that you're just so clear that people understand, okay, like I can raise my hand. Like that is who, yeah, I get it. Like Lisa's going to coach me. I'm potential. Mm-hmm. People can really it makes it easy for people to raise their hand and say, yes, I want your services. So let's talk about the National Eucharistic Congress. Because again, that's how I first got wind of you guys. And it was through these very powerful, very, very short, but extremely powerful videos. How did that partnership with the Congress come up?
Yeah. So because we've been doing video in this space for 8 years, you tend to meet everyone you need to know in order to kind of build your brand. And so that partnership came from just an introduction from another past client. Actually, we did a conference in Boston for their Eucharistic Congress. And so one thing led to another. We met Chris Frank, who and the whole team, Tim Glemkowski, a lot of great people, Joe Stepanek, and just a lot of conversations. I probably overpromised, as because I think there's also some selfish desire, like I want to be a part of this, right? But also, it was funny. We almost didn't do the daily recaps. That wasn't part of the plan at first. But Chris mentioned it, and I thought, actually, we'd love to take that on. But then there was this mental anguish for months of like, I need to prep for this, and I need to do it. But then distractions get in the way. I have 4 sons. I can't imagine 10. Not sure what that's like. I can't imagine 10 and raising a business. Like, you're superhuman. It's insane. But anyway, we have 4 on Earth, and that over the summer, especially when there's no routines, is anguish on top of mental anguish. So I think at some point I just surrendered it to the Lord. Like, I can't prepare for this anymore. I have my team and I delegate certain things. And filmmaking has always been collaborative. It's hard to make something on your own. It can be done, and it can be done well, but oftentimes, that's kind of part of my wounds. Is like when I started a company before Lux Lab and it failed, it was because I was by myself. I didn't have accountability. I didn't have people to bounce ideas off of. When you have a team, it's a true blessing. And so when we signed up to do 5 recap videos, I had in my mind, I need to find all the music now. I need to figure out what transitions we want to do. I need to figure out the text effects, and all those things were on the back of my mind. This needs to happen. But then on top of everything else going in life, distractions and raising a family, sometimes those things don't work out. But that first video that you just played, day 1, that song was the skeleton for the whole thing. It was sent to me from one of my teammates, John Schmidt, and at first I was like, this is like such a complicated song. It's like a 10-minute song that that night after being there and witnessing this overwhelming experience, 50,000 people, actually it was probably less, because I don't know if you heard, there was like, it was hard to get in that first night. But just being there and seeing the stage and how professional it was, a lot of overwhelming tension, knowing, okay, how am I going to put this into 60 seconds?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so hold on. We're going to watch one more, and then I want you to answer that question. Okay. So I literally want you to answer after we play this. What's the process of putting something so grand into 60 seconds? So let's watch one more. Is this one here? You know, this love story? Is this a recap?
My favorite one is day 4. The one that says these roads lead to revival.
Okay, let's watch it.
Yep, that one. Yeah.
Jesus, we did all this for you. We want the world to know who you are, how good you are. Make us, Lord, your missionaries to every corner of our land.
I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh for the life of the world.
Are we both crying again? Are we both crying?
You should have not played that. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Again. So answer that question. How did you get, like, there's so many things I could, again, I'm not like, I just have been in media for a long time. So there's things that I as a prop stylist, as a what was my actual title? Production designer, right? I would often be on the back, on the shoulder, so to speak, of our DOP, or director of photography. And I would be looking in his monitor what he was seeing. And so I just, through experience, I had to learn, okay, I've got to move that pillow an inch to the left. I have to bring in something yellow because there's something, So I just learned through 10 years, literally, of being behind a DOP shoulder. So there's certain things that I understand, but obviously it's not my area of expertise. But like, for example, just the variety of shots, that's what I find very, very compelling. You have these larger drone, from very far away, capturing the vastness, right? The priest walking up these stairs that are both visually appealing, but also give you this incredible vastness, right? But then you've also got these shots that are right, somebody's face crying and like snot and like, hands in the air. And then you've got these incredible visuals of the Eucharist, but they're also all very like quality. So like, this is not like a grainy cell phone, So there's just so many things. So how did you, answer that question? How did you take this incredible day where we have Jonathan Rumi, where we have all these other people, and then turn it into 60 seconds? Take us through the process.
I totally hear you about, fixing a shot and making it perfect. Like, if I turn this computer to the left at all, you'll see the mess that my kids made when they played Uno this morning before school, or the blowout diaper over there. So I totally get it. I have I think my background when I was in film school, I fell in love with the camera and being behind the camera shooting. That naturally became, well, in order to build a business, I have to delegate that, and I have to delegate editing. Like, I haven't edited actually in maybe 2 years. This was my first time editing in a while, but I miss it. I'm a big movie buff. I love to go see movies. So anything that I'm editing comes from trailers that I like to watch. Probably movies I shouldn't be watching, scandalous movies, but Mad Max, I probably shouldn't have seen that in the theaters. But I get inspired by those films and those visuals and those go into the edits. So, but that one in particular, that one, man, that one was fun. I think something to know is, these edits don't start until 9 p.m. So I'm already kind of like, I've already been up for a while. I think those mornings, I think I was waking up at 1 p.m. Like I was doing the night shift. But still, I wanted to be everywhere too. So there was a lack of sleep for sure. 4 hours, I think 4 hours a night. So already I was living this kind of out of body experience, and I think any editor will tell you, like, that's not a good shape to edit in. And so the only way I can really describe it is like, I don't think I was editing. Like there were like, I think it was the Holy Spirit moving through me. It's like Matthew writing the Gospels. Like there's no way I could have made the decisions that I made. And also on top of that, just collaborating with the photographers. There were so many great photographers there, led by Josh Applegate and his team. There, I had my filmmakers there: Philip Braun, John Schmidt, Casey Schaefer. That was my team on the floor, and we had a strategy too. Like I said, we all agreed, like, if you have a shot that you love, film your hand for a second afterwards. I know when I'm editing, like, okay, this shot. That doesn't always work when you're on the run, right? When you're trying to go. So oftentimes we'll meet at the end and talk about, okay, this shot needs to be used, this shot. That day I knew was going to be huge. So I think I came to that set thinking I'd fly the drone, but I knew a couple days ahead that I was like, there's no way I can have time for this. So I hired that out at the last second. And I stayed on the floor with a 360 camera and an iPhone, and figured this would be enough for me to like get close. So my favorite shot in that entire sequence of day 4 is when we're following the altar servers and they're swinging the thurible, and then we pan to the monstrance. That moment no one else got, because maybe I was a little bit too bold, but I had the 360 camera on the end of a stick and just kind of put it down below his feet. No one could see what it was. It's a tiny camera, probably the size of this.
Oh, wow.
If not smaller. So I think it took a little boldness to get some of the shots we really wanted to. And I think, by the time it hits 2 a.m., you're just kind of putting in your favorite shots, making sure it matches the beat. And I think kind of looking at the edit, knowing, okay, I want this part of the song to be this shot, because it's the best shot. It needs to be this part of the song, and then kind of working backwards from there. Maybe it's the same like writing a book. Like, what act 2 is, so you start there and then you fill out the rest. Or the climactic scene, and you work backwards. So but that's not every video. Every video is different, and there's certain needs that a client wants, right? For day 1, I wanted to make sure to show all those lines coming into Lucas Oil, to show like this is the culmination of this huge pilgrimage that's happened over the course of the last 3 months. So just meeting, it's all collaboration, right? Not just with your client and with the rest of your team, but with the Holy Spirit, just letting him work through you and allowing that to happen. Because oftentimes you just want to say, like, I got to get this done at this time. And forgetting to just pray, like do the minimum, like you mentioned at the top. What could be the minimum to allow the Holy Spirit to just do this for you? Giving it all you got, but letting him fill in the rest.
That is so interesting. Oh, so let's talk a little bit about the transcendental. So for anyone not familiar, this is truth, beauty, and goodness. And it's there are people who will, and it's sort of, when we talk about evangelization, it can be helpful to understand the transcendentals, because there are some people who will be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like truth will speak to them. So, for example, giving them a Lighthouse Catholic Media CD, giving them a book, giving them a podcast that is very Q&A or very fact driven is going to really speak to them. People who might be more sensitive to the transcendental of goodness might love an alpha program. They might love the ability to come and sit with other people, or to serve other people. And then, of course, beauty is things like these videos, right? So people who are sensitive to beauty are deeply impacted by a beautiful piece of art, or by music, or like we've been talking about, video. So what role can the transcendentals have when one is telling their brand story?
Yeah. Beauty is the language of our hearts. And oftentimes we are attracted to it because we're broken ourselves, right? I've heard so many different stories of how beauty has led someone to just feel small and say thank you, not knowing who to thank, but finding beauty in art, in movies, even like small victories, or raising children, finding my keys when I'm leaving the house, like little victories like that. Right now, even my 1-year-old is obsessed with biting his lower lip. Like he's not a pacifier kid, but just sitting in bed and staring at his face and thinking, this kid is like the most beautiful child. I'm biased, but like just kind of asking those questions when you see beauty. I think was it Pope Benedict XVI says that it wounds us. You see beauty because it hurts. I think of, when I say that, I mean, like, it makes you long for okay, what does it mean? It makes you long for meaning. So when I see my 1-year-old who's, just cute, just asking those questions, like the beauty, the mystery of creating life, right? So beauty oftentimes is the bridge to step out and invite people to find truth, to find goodness, because in our world right now, it's hard to believe in truth, right? Truth is subjective. It's moral relativism, I think of. It's also hard to believe in goodness because we're all broken. We're disappointed in people. We're disappointed in our leaders. So it's hard to believe in truth and goodness. But beauty bypasses through our reason. Beauty is what draws us in and makes us curious. A client we worked with back in 2019 was More Than You Realize, and our whole goal was to talk about pre-evangelization, which is not going to someone and saying, "Hey, have you met Jesus?" And which is good evangelization, but leading with the transcendental of beauty. And so I think, and beauty is a reflection of God. People notice something beautiful, not just something pretty, but something contemplative, right? Something that we ask those questions. Like when divine providence happens for you, like when you have those small victories or moments of grace, right? And so beauty, I think, lends itself for us in storytelling, right? Because we are curators of content and crafting them into a story, and reminding people that, or in showing people, that something is missing. When Adam in the garden was created, he longed for beauty because he was incomplete. So when we create stories, we are, we're doing it through a Catholic lens. We understand the gospel, and we have to filter that gospel through what we create, because we know that Jesus did that. You know, it was his favorite teaching tool, right? So I could keep going. I mean, I think from there we talk about like what's the best way of finding a good story. How can you use that story for evangelization? How can you use story for your own brand? We could take it a lot of ways, but you know, I'm happy to go whatever direction you want to go.
So let's talk about how the average person can do this, right? So, you know, I'm sure there are some people listening. Well, you had like 7,000 cameras, like, you know, at the Eucharistic Congress. How do I do that in my everyday with my iPhone? So I'd love for you to break down, because I love that there's a couple. I was going to do a little bit of joke. I was going to do this, you know, like, because there was a line you just said a few moments ago that was so good, and it was just beauty. It reveals God. It was something like that. You know, I was going to put my hand up and be like, "That's the part I'm going to edit and share Twitter." You know, I have a lot of coaches in the world, a lot of women who help others transform. And so how can the average person at home with their iPhone, the mom who is running her business at home, kids are in the next door, she might be thinking, I have to have this professional setup in order to create videos. How can the average mom or the average business owner reflect God and reflect the transformations that he may have entrusted them as a coach, for example, to offer to particular people, right? So, and this is a very broad question. Just how does average person create these really compelling stories from their home?
Yeah, it does depend on the business, right? And it depends on who their audience is. But I think knowing the recipe for a good story is a good start. I think that's the foundation of everything you produce, content related. And what I like to when I reflect on story, I think of an equation: a hero with a desire plus conflict equals transformation. And oftentimes, one of our favorite books when 5 years ago, when we were implementing brand story for our clients, one of our favorite books was Story Brand by Donald Miller. You've read it?
Yeah,
or you've seen it?
Yeah.
And so we felt called to that because it complemented everything we learned at film school. Because what Donald found was, inspired by, the man with 1,000 faces, Joseph Campbell, how can we use that storytelling structure for our brands? And so he's got a 7-part framework. A hero has a desire, has a problem, meets a guide. So who, meets the coach or the brand. And then that brand has empathy and authority, like what makes you stand out. And then that brand gives them a plan, which helps them find success and avoid failure. So going through those 7 steps helps them reorient, like, okay, what do I do for you? What are you going through, and how can I step in and be your guide? How can I be Kenobi to your Luke Skywalker, or Morpheus to Neo? Whatever. Those are my films, but I'm trying to think. Dory to... No, we don't want to go woke here.
I love Donald Miller, like, absolutely, for his work. And the biggest thing I learned from his content is that you've got to make your customer the hero. That often the service provider or the business will make themselves the hero. And that's such a helpful, so what does that look like in practical terms? If you're making yourself the hero, you might be showing off, like we were awarded this, or we did this, or look at our building, it's so fancy, or what have you,
Yeah.
right? And you want to show those things to show credibility that builds trust, absolutely. But if you're only doing that, we have a bit of a problem. An example of making the customer your hero is you're showing how the transformation makes them the hero of their family, makes them able to do things differently. Like, it's so focused. What else? How else can we make the customer the hero?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Like, we don't want to just talk about, our new course that we have or our new building that we just got. Those are good things, and it shows credibility, and it's part of, step 3 of the buckets, all those 7 buckets. But we want to have a good mix. And oftentimes you want to figure out your brand story, having it written down so you know which buckets to borrow from when you speak to your audience. And so just as beauty draws people in to a story or to a meaningful connection, your brand story uses both to invite people into a journey that feels authentic. And if you're the hero and you see a brand, it's about you, and you recognize, okay, yes, I do have those problems. How do I find success? Oh, through this brand, or through what your solution is. So I think you asked a question that I didn't answer. What was it?
No, you answered how to make the customer your hero.
Yeah, and so just like in any good story, borrowing from any good movie, The Man with a Thousand Faces, the who is our way in when you're speaking to your client. So you want to know your audience so that you can allow them to identify with your brand, right? They're like, oh, that's me. And so that's the invitation at the top of your funnel. That could be a 10-second clip on reel on Instagram, taking advantage of the algorithm, being relatable, right? That's what draws people in. But then also not stopping there, showing the stakes, because that's what really gets our attention, because that shows the motivation for the hero to succeed. And then after showing in a full, usually what we suggest when we build a brand story for someone, we do a couple different pieces of content. And that's your 2 to 3 minute brand story. That's 2 to 3 short reels for Instagram to be at the top of your funnel. And sometimes eventually it leads into a testimonial video, hearing from your brand's audience, to hear it's just like a review on Amazon. You want to know, okay, how is this? Why am I giving this a 5-star review? So when we build that 2 to 3 minute brand story, we sit down with a client, and usually it's a 90-minute meeting where we go through all of the questions in the framework. And eventually we start talking about the plan. Okay, what is the plan that you want to give your audience? Because a lot of times your audience doesn't know what to do next. There's so many, maybe there's a lot of information, and they need that to be funneled into a 3-step plan. And that usually helps them overcome that analysis paralysis, right? But I think, coming back to like some practicals, after having the foundation of your brand story and building that out and answering some important questions about, okay, who's my hero? What's their problem? How can I help them overcome that problem? What does success look like? What does failure look like? It's taking all that information and creating consistency. And that's on whatever social media platform you're finding your audience on. Could be LinkedIn, Instagram, or even Pinterest, right? Forming all those messages and making sure they're in the right spots. But I think, that comes back to a great brand story is like a well-told parable. It has the power to transform. It has the power to inspire others, to allow them to ask questions, right? So I think we can dig more in, but I think that's a good start.
What's the most important question? Like you posed a couple really good ones there very quickly. What's the most important question that someone could ponder today as they're listening to this podcast?
Most important question for building their brand story? I think for actually finding and building your brand story, I think maybe a lot of people already know it deep down. But something I learned at Focus when I worked at Focus before Lux Lab, I was there for 4 years. We had 5 different audiences, and that was students, alumni, chaplains, donors, and missionaries. our missionaries on the ground. And so oftentimes we had to, because when you shoot an arrow, you're not going to hit 2 targets. You're going to hit 1 target. So oftentimes you have to curate your content for each audience. And so what we did, and this was the foundation for what we do now, is we built like a persona worksheet, which had a list of probably 30 questions on who your target audience is, what they feel, what they do, where they live in terms of their platforms. Yeah. Even questions like what do they have for breakfast? Do they eat breakfast? Do they fast on Fridays? Depending on who your audience is, those questions would be good to ask. So really getting to know who your audience is, especially if you want to niche down, because oftentimes our audience is anyone who's between ages 30 and 60. That's not going to be enough. Your answers are going to be too broad. So I think figuring out who your audience is important. That's an important step. And I think one of my favorite questions in getting to know them is what's the obstacle in their way.
Yeah.
Because that's where you step in.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I think the most important question, and what I really try to hammer constantly, what problem are you solving?
Yeah.
But it's so important. It has to be a problem that your person knows they have. You might realize there's a problem. Let's just use weight loss, okay? So you might have all this insider knowledge about macros and insulin and glucose, and so you might know that they've got too much glucose. Okay. Like the average woman in her 40s or hitting perimenopause like me, she's probably not using that language. She's probably not being like, oh, gosh, if I could only just solve my glucose problem. That's not what she's saying. She's saying my pants don't fit. My is my husband looking at me the same? She's using very different language than the person who might be the glucose coach, right? So I just that is the problem something they know they have. That is so important. Nick, I could talk to you all day because this is just so much fun, and you've given us, people are saying some lovely things in the chat here. That this conversation is just so helpful. The videos, Holy Spirit was certainly a guide. So thank you so much for everyone who's joining us live. But I guess one of my final questions today is, what do you hope is the legacy of your work at Lux Lab?
Yeah, I blocked off the next 4 hours if you want to keep going. Kidding. Yeah, I over the past 8 months, I've recognized, at the beginning of that 8 months, I recognized I can't do it without you, Lord, because oftentimes there comes to the end of the month where I don't know how I'm going to meet payroll, right? And or even, I can recognize, oh, in 2 months it's going to be rough, in 3 months it's going to be rough, and falling on my knees, finding a chapel or doing it here, and just begging the Lord, like, I can't do it. I need you to rescue me. And I think that recognizing that, even in the successes, still falling on my knees and still telling him, I need you. And I think he allowed me to, and continues to allow me to suffer in those ways, from raising a business and raising a family, because I needed to recognize that I can't do without him, and that's built the foundation of my prayer to even today. So I think building a legacy through my work, I know it feels like it comes down to in those moments of remembering the order of my identity, remembering that I'm a son of God first, and then I am a husband, and then I am a father, and then I can serve this vocation of creating with beauty, leading with beauty, which is already being done, in my marriage. Where, the sacrament of marriage being an external sign to a grace, right, and showing that to others. We're leading with beauty there. I'm leading with beauty by being a father, but also remembering that the order of my identity, being a son of God first, because that allows me to set. That reminds me to pray, right? And I think it's through that prayer that I can prep as much as I can for a shoot, but knowing that the Lord will come through and fill the gaps, and also not just fill the gaps, but orchestrate the entire thing. And I think trying to get to an answer, the legacy is just knowing that I'm using this business as a tool to get to heaven. The legacy is, and maybe we create some fun stuff on the way. We're trying to work with. When I first started Lux Lab, we worked with EWTN to make a TV show called Real Life Catholic. Look it up, Amazon Prime. It's really fun. We're trying to create more stuff like that, stories on YouTube. Playing a lot with AI lately, just trying to be on the cutting edge of that, knowing how to use it so that we don't lose our jobs, right? So there's a lot of things that we're working on and trying to be fresh, at the same time knowing that that those priorities of my identity, and showing that to my kids so that they can have a firm foundation as they are raised.
You've got a real life Catholic fan here, from a country life. Wish there were more episodes. So that's just so
yes.
And I just final contribution to this moment in our interview is that I've had to learn through tremendously the hard way, but it's been just to remember that God is good. I similarly, I think I'm very self-reliant. Like I'm prone to just like, okay, I have to control it all. Like I've got it, all the plans, all the strategies, like I got to have it all. And I'm just gripping, so tightly. And the last few years, I've had to just accept, if I believe that God is good, then this struggle and this suffering is not punishment. And that's been pivotal for me. I sometimes can lament, like, woe is me, just like, what the heck are you doing, Lord? You don't care about me. You're putting me through all this. But then when we remember that God is good, that's actually a very fundamental part of all of this, right? Like if we believe that God is good, then we believe that he's, always loving and always have our interests at heart. So all of these things fit within a plan for our salvation, truly, right?
Yeah.
Our sanctity. So that's been my lesson over the last couple of Nick.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to share that you haven't been able to share?
Next time you bring me on, I'll share my conversion story. It's a fun one.
Oh.
And how that leads to the craft of filmmaking. I think There's
No,
some fun insights through there.
I feel like you can't leave us hanging. Can you tell us? Do you have time to tell us that now?
Oh my gosh, you were wrapping it up so well. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a long story. I wouldn't want to tarnish it. But,
all right, we'll have to have you back then. Why don't we'll save that for
yes.
your conversation. We'll have you back. Where can people
Great.
go to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, thanks. The website is weareluxlab.com. You can reach out to me, Nick at weareluxlab.com. We're on, I think our favorite spot right now is Instagram. We're just like having a lot of fun creating content, writing the momentum of the Congress. We just released a reel today that's really fun from one of my editors. Yeah, you can reach out on there. That's how you found me. I'm glad that you were like stalking. I'm glad that's what you were up to.
It's a skill that I have. I'm like, get to the heart of who made this. I'm going to figure it out. Who exactly published on this particular post.
Very grateful that you reached out. This is fun.
My pleasure. Alrighty, Nick, thank you so much for joining. Until next time, everybody, keep on creating. And you know, if you need a little blueprint for how to build a six-figure business, go wherever you're listening or watching this and just click on that button and join me September 23rd, just over a week from the time of this recording. Join me and Stephanie Donahue in this live 5-day event. And just, I hope you've taken from this conversation a lot of encouragement that your voice and your story and your business matter, and that you can use video to help the people that you are meant to help. Alrighty, everybody, we'll see you next time. We'll bring Nick back on. I love it. I see Anne-Marie here, your comment. He has 4 more hours. We'll bring Nick back on to talk about his conversion, and we will see everybody next time on the Possibility Mom Live.